Hi, Caressa Love here, back with my 30th and 31st week pregnancy update for these twin boys that are soon to come. So, okay, in my 30th week, I went to maternal fetal medicine, and in my 31st week, I went to my regular OB. As of today, right now, I am 32 weeks and 1 day. So this update is for the last 2 weeks since my last video that I posted. So at 30 weeks, which was maternal fetal medicine, I learned that baby A weighed 3 pounds 9 ounces. So they're getting big, 3 pounds 9 ounces. Baby B was 3 pounds 6 ounces. The fluid around the babies, they said it goes by points or something like that. And but 2 and below is considered low, and 8 or above is considered high. So baby A was at a 4, closer to the lower end, and baby B was at 7, closer to the higher end. Now, I did learn at this appointment that baby B has what they call a marginal cord insertion, or aka battledore placenta. What this means is, well, pretty much you have your regular, this is your regular placenta, and the umbilical cord is normally attached right there in the center. But with baby B, the marginal cord insertion, the cord is attached to the side of the placenta, which may cause, lower birth weight, problems, getting the right nutrition and things of that such. So the specialist really wasn't too concerned with baby B falling behind by 3 ounces from baby A, and pretty much, put it off to this is probably why, he weighs less than his brother, because of the marginal cord insertion. But what I didn't like about the appointment was the fact that she just kind of threw it in there like, oh, baby has marginal cord insertion, but you knew that, right? No, I did not, and I don't know if my doctor knew this either. And if both of you knew this, how long have you been keeping it from me? And why didn't nobody want to tell me? I'm the one pregnant. So I didn't like that part of the appointment at all. It really put me in a very worrisome state until I just, I had to know what's going on. So, that was pretty much that. That was pretty much how that visit went. But of course, like we obsess over pregnancy and, oh my God, what does this mean? Is that a symptom? What are the risks? So of course, I went home, I went on Google, and I just typed in marginal cord insertion, and I started, things started popping up. I really wasn't able to find too much on marginal cord insertion, which kind of scared me. It made me feel like it was some very rare thing that barely happens, and they didn't know much about it. But so I started reading that those babies don't tolerate labor well, and that if the cord can easily become unattached from the placenta simply because it's on the side and the bond isn't as strong. So if it becomes unattached during labor, they can, pretty much bleed out, like bleed to death through their umbilical cord, which, sort of scared me, because I spoke to my doctor, a few weeks ago, that I'm getting very, scared and worried about this C-section, that I would want to try to have them vaginal if they're both head down, which they were the last, on my last video when I went to that visit there. So, that kind of scared me. Had to know what's going on. I stayed up all night on Google. So that was pretty much what I found. I found a few boards that had, similar, what's the word I'm looking for? Like similar symptoms, or not, that's not the word I'm looking for, but anyway, but it's like similar cord problems. And I learned about those as well, but of course none of those applied to me, and it absolutely scared me, because some people are like, oh yeah, I gave birth to my baby and they were stillborn, or the baby had bled to death by the time I had it. So it put me in a bad place. Now, let's see here. Okay, so that was maternal fetal medicine at 30 weeks. At 30 weeks and 5 days, I had to go to the emergency room. I was in so much pain. I was at work. I was having back labor. The contractions were 10 minutes apart. And according to my OB, she said, you know, if they're 10 minutes apart, don't wait. Just come on right into the hospital, you know, and we'll take care of you. So that's what I did. They were 10 minutes apart. Went to the hospital, and actually I sort of underestimated the timing of those contractions because, well, they're Braxton Hicks. You know, some of them you can feel, others you can't. Some are more uncomfortable than others are. But by the time I got to the hospital, they did a non-stress test, and the contractions were 2 to 3 minutes apart. Then they were 6 to 8 minutes apart. Then I wouldn't have one for 10 minutes, and then they'll be, you know, between 1 and 2 minutes apart. So they weren't really consistent, and they pretty much sent me home and said, you know, this isn't enough for you to go into labor or for you to dilate, you know, at all. So I'm still stuck at a 1 centimeter, and that's where that stands. My doctor said, you know, at this point she's not gonna keep checking my cervix because she doesn't want to bother it, so or make me, you know, dilate even more. So she's just gonna leave it there. But I did go to the hospital, and but I'm glad I went because, you know, it gave me an ease of mind that, you know, I'm not staying home while I'm in active labor because, you know, my tolerance is very high and I wouldn't know. So, and especially hearing from what maternal fetal medicine told me, I definitely did not want to stay home. I wanted to make sure these babies are going to be okay. Absolutely okay. So, oh, one thing that they did do in the hospital, of course they did the non-stress test, which we're probably all familiar with. It's when they put the little, you know, the little bands around your belly, and it checks the baby's heart rate and the strength of your contractions at the same time. So I did that. But then they also gave me, I don't know what it's called. I'm sure somebody does. And if you do, if you can put the name of this, you know, test or whatever it is down below, I'll greatly appreciate that. But it's pretty much like a pap smear, like when you get your yearly. So it goes in, how the little pap smear little mechanism does. It goes inside of your vagina, and then, you know, it opens up, and they get a long cotton swab, and they, you know, swab your cervix. Now, they told me this was to check to see if you would go into labor within the next 2 weeks. I had never heard of this before, never heard of any type of test that's able to detect that. I don't know exactly what the test is looking for, if it's looking for fluid, if it's looking for cells that are present on the cervix. I have no clue. But apparently this test can tell you if you're going into labor within the next 2 weeks. Now, of course, I had my OB appointment at 31 weeks. And when I got there, you know, I had all of my questions lined up, and I forgot to ask for the results of that swab, because I did go three days later to my OB after leaving the hospital. So I would think the results would have, you know, been ready, but I had so many things on my mind. I forgot to ask my doctor, and I really wanted to know more so about the marginal cord insertion and ask her, you know, a healthcare professional versus Google. So she did tell me that you know, the risks that are involved with the marginal cord insertion, and pretty much that what I read on Google was not bullcrap, but it was for something similar to marginal cord insertion or battledore placenta, called velamentous placenta or something like that. But it's when the cord is not attached to the placenta, but it's actually attached to the blood vessels. It goes through the blood vessels of something like that. Something very confusing. But thank God I don't have that, because the risks with that are great. And she said, you know, pretty much, you know, just relax. But it's probably the best for babies if I have a C-section. I cried like a baby, because I'm so terrified. For one, I've never had surgery. And I just don't want to go through the recovery pain. I saw my sister, she had twins, what she went through, and I want to be able to walk around, 3 days, 4 days later without problems, without having to hold a pillow to my stomach because I'm worried about if my incision is going to bust open or my guts are going to fall out or whatever. But so I cried. She told me, yeah, pretty much C-section is what it's going to be right now. In addition to that bad news, I learned that baby A, well, what was baby A, which is now baby B, has actually turned all the way around and is now breech. So, no kudos to that. Pissed me off because I had my plan of having these babies vaginal, because when I went 2 weeks ago to my doctor, and even at 30 weeks when I went to maternal fetal medicine, they check the position of the babies. They were both head down. They were cephalic. So I'm like, yay, I get to have my vaginal. But no. Baby B, which is baby B now, is now breech. Feet first. And she pretty much said, this is probably why you were having so many contractions. You were in back labor like crazy when you went to the hospital, because most likely this baby was turning around and this baby was wedged all the way. He was far down, very far down there. So that's probably why you feel so much discomfort in your back. And yeah, so that was a bummer. Because I normally, at this point, I look forward to going to my doctor's appointment, believe it or not. But yeah, so that pretty much threw me for a loop. Yeah, so I totally forgot to ask my doctor about the results for that culture. And okay, so at this point, when I went to my OB, I now weigh 238 pounds, which means I've gained 23 pounds in these 31 weeks of pregnancy. Let me say that again. I'm 238. I've gained 23 pounds in 31 weeks. Biggest I've ever been. You can see it all here in my face. I have a double chin now, guys. I barely have a neck to begin with. Now it's like almost non-existent. So I'm definitely, feeling the weight all in my face, of course, and my belly feels heavy. My back is just unbelievable. I'm just totally ballooning right now. Like literally, I'm at the point where I don't even bother. I'm not going to bother buying any more maternity clothes, because I've learned that life isn't fair for tall girls. I'll just say that life isn't fair for tall girls. They don't make clothes for tall girls, let alone maternity clothes, because all the cute little shirts that I have, they're made for women with, regular sized torsos. My torso is very long. So my belly is like pretty much almost sticking out of even my work clothes. So what I do now is buy a little band that covers it. It looks like an undershirt to just cover it, because I only have like a few more weeks left of this pregnancy. And as of right now, I'm so over it, and I'm over not being able to fit any of my clothes. As a matter of fact, this beater, white, I don't know what you guys call it, but I call it a white beater. This beater that I have on now is barely covering my belly. It almost doesn't. So yeah, it is what it is. My bra, before I started this pregnancy, I was a 38D. Now I'm like a 40 double D. I'm outgrowing that, so I can only imagine once my milk comes in. Yeah, so that's another story. Okay, so my upcoming appointments. So maternal fetal medicine, the next time I see them will be this Friday, which is October 20th, and then I'll see my OB October 27th, which is the following Friday, I believe. And yeah, then I'll make another video, of course, updating about that. Now, symptoms at 32 weeks. I have the popping in my hips. I've read people had this before. Never had it in my life. Most painful thing ever. Wouldn't want to wish it on anyone. But I definitely have the popping in my hips. TMI alert. But I pretty much have a bowel movement a couple times a day. That's really not me. Which I'm surprised, because I take a lot of iron, because I always have a problem with my iron every pregnancy. So that was surprising. My blood pressure is 102/69. And I check that often because I've started noticing swelling. And actually I'll make another video about how preeclampsia nearly killed me with my last pregnancy nearly 1 year ago. So guys, I'll see you later. And I look forward to speaking with you guys, letting you guys know more about this pregnancy and our plans and how things are going to turn out.